Hello there and welcome to today's edition of Off the Press. Today is Friday, the 12th of April 2019, and the weather forecast in Lagos for now is at an average of 28 degrees, but it will get hotter later on during the day and it will reach a high of 32 degrees. But even so, it will be mostly cloudy. I'm Tokunbo Taiwo, and joining me here in the studio to discuss the major headlines in today's dailies is Public Affairs Analyst Gbolahun Olojede. Thank you very much for coming once again.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so today we've got the Vanguard, we've got This Day, we've got The Nation, The Punch, we've got the new Telegraph, Daily Sun, and we've got Complete Sports. I wonder if we've got time to be able to take all during the short space of time that we've got on Off the Press. So without further ado, let's kick things off with Vanguard. Okay, so the major headline for the Vanguard is just in the middle there: insecurity, Buhari launches offensive, orders ruthless action. And just a couple of riders underneath that: 15 persons killed, houses, cars, motorbikes burnt in Benue, Northern elders task Buhari on menace, reps give him ultimatum, and then rejig security, Pandef tells Buhari, get to the roots, says Ohaneze, where for a secured Nigeria, Afenifere, Falana threatens public protest, and many Zamfara royal fathers involved in gold mining, says the IGP. So that's the number of riders underneath the major headline there on the Vanguard. There's still a couple more stories as usual. Let's look at the top. At the top of the Vanguard newspaper, we've got Chairman Chuku in the top left-hand corner. Chairman Chuku finally speaks, clears air on his condition. That story is on page 45. And let's look at the bottom of the Vanguard. We have NECO postpones National Common Entrance Examination. That story is on page 34. And underneath that, we've got police arrest 33 suspects for cultism in Lagos. And next to that story, that headline, Rivers Supreme Court declines to reverse self, throws out APC's appeal, and Wike extends hands of fellowship to Amechi. That story is on page 12. Okay, so Gbolahun, let's start with the main headline. Buhari launches offensive, orders ruthless action, and that headline is actually predominant in most of the newspapers today. So.
Correct. What is going on in Zamfara requires certain different levels of attack for this. There has to be the emergency one. You know, you have a group that is killing 50 of your citizens in a single day. It cannot be a joke, and you have to let that kind of a bandit group know who is in charge without any equivocation. But beyond the emergency is the fact that we now have to look at what are the other things over the next 6 months, in the medium term, and in the long term. What is causing all this problem? So there has to be a strategic approach to dealing with whatever is going on in Zamfara. Apparently, there are issues of resources under the ground. Everybody knows how resources under the ground has made countries like DRC to become. There's something similar to that brewing in that place. The traditional rulers are said to be involved. Some military people, hierarchies, are said to be involved in all this mining activity. Foreign companies are also there mining. How much is the country itself getting from all of this? We don't even know. It seems as if a lot of the mining that is going on in Zamfara are not under the proper control. I'm trying to look for a line in that fragment budget that shows how much we're making from all this gold that everybody is talking about. So what comes across to me is that there is a lot that we can do. We need to control what is going on in Zamfara and make it work for the nation, not for the individual elite members.
Absolutely. All right, moving on to the This Day newspapers. We've got a number of stories there. Let me start at the top of the newspaper. IMF advises Nigeria to remove fuel subsidy, and underneath that, a rider with the World Bank says poverty is worsening in the country. And now onto the main headlines. Buhari orders security chiefs to deal ruthlessly with bandits. The IG in Kaduna Abuja road now safe. House summons president over insecurity. And just underneath that is the major headline of all. The Supreme Court breaks Rivers electoral logjam, strikes out APC's appeals. And underneath that, a few riders. PDP hails judgment, and Wike offers Amechi an olive branch. Okay, so those are the headlines on this day. Let me see if we've got anything major at the back. Just the usual article and the usual column. Shaka Momodu's is asking many more questions for Baru. So if you want to find out details of that, grab a copy of This Day. Okay, on to the front page once again. What story do you want to touch on This Day?
The first story up there, okay. IMF advises Nigeria to remove fuel subsidy. It's one of the toughest decisions the government is grappling with. And I'm happy that IMF has brought it up again. It's not a popular decision. And a lot of people don't even understand the intricacies of how the oil industry works. All the average citizen knows is that this is what I enjoy. They want to take it away and make the fuel to cost more. But the truth is that it goes way beyond that. We must be able to confront this fuel subsidy thing and remove it for the sake of the nation. We are subsidizing the rich, we are subsidizing neighboring countries, we are subsidizing things that do not even exist. You have issues of inflated consumption of fuel, and we are subsidizing all of that. We need to remove fuel subsidy, and I'm glad that IMF is bringing it to the fore once again. Okay,
I wish we had more time, to delve deep into it.
It's a very interesting.
Exactly, because I wanted to talk about World Bank's angle on that. But let's move on to the Nation newspaper now. The main headline on the Nation newspaper is Buhari says to security chiefs, be ruthless with bandits. Like we saw earlier, that's a recurring headline. Just underneath that, House summons president over crime wave. Okay, let's look at the top of the Nation now. In the top left-hand corner, we've got ex-minister blew $56 million US cash on a jet. That story is available on page 6. And underneath that, they've got EFCC petitioned on Malibu oil deal. Okay, to the top right-hand corner of the Nation, we've got Wike to Amechi and others, let's unite. And underneath that, APC's appeals struck out. The full story is available on page 7. Let's see if there's any other story at the bottom here. Yes, we do have one at the bottom of the Nation newspaper. Government wants Atiku against self-help, and underneath that, PDP alleges a plot to frame the VP. Okay, so let me take you up on this one. Government wants Atiku against self-help.
Yeah, if you read the initial report, there was this organization that came out with a report that Atiku has paid $30,000 to hire some lobbyists and all that other thing. It comes across as if that report is true. It will be that Alhaji Atiku is seeking international help to undermine a judicial process that is already going on in Nigeria, which, if extended unnecessarily, could be taken to be treasonable. You're trying to undermine your own country. And that is the perspective that the government is bringing into this. I don't think we have something of that level of severity going on. But there is still partisan politics. PDP has done this, therefore APC must amplify it and make it look bigger than it is. But in the real sense, Nigeria's problem is going to be solved by Nigerians, not by Americans. Americans are only interested in one thing, the national interest of America, not the national interest of Nigeria. They don't care.
Exactly.
So Nigerians at leadership level, at followership level, must realize that and know that we will be the one to solve our own problem. That's why I'm delighted about what is going on with the Wike reaching out to Amechi.
Okay. All right, let me still touch on Atiku's story because, you know, for someone who is aspiring to be the president of the country, do you think that was a good move that he made?
If that story is true, it's a very bad move. It's a very bad move. You're already in court. Just follow through the process. Let it be known that we have a court process that works. This is the same court process that had thrown out APC's suit consistently about Rivers State. So why do we want to take that and find it pleasing, and we're not willing to hang on and let the process ring true for the other things?
All right, so since you brought this up, Wike to Amechi, others, let's unite. You know, does that speak well of Wike, considering all of the things that have happened in Rivers State?
I think it's a good place to start. I've been consistent about the fact that what is going on in Rivers State is not about APC or Buhari or anything. There are two Rivers sons, Amechi and Wike, are at the head of this. There is no external person contesting election in Rivers State. The people being killed, the people involved in the violence are also Rivers people. So let the elders of the land come together and call these people and resolve the problem. Enough of violence in elections in Rivers since 2003. It has to come to a stop.
Exactly, it has to. I agree as well. All right, let's move on to the Punch newspapers. The major headline on the Punch newspaper is Reps summon Buhari over killings by herdsmen and bandits. And underneath that, they say, want explanations for rising kidnaps, carnage in 48 hours. NAF airstrikes killing innocent villagers, Zamfara monarchs. Those stories are available on pages 7 and 14. So that's the major headline on the Punch newspaper. At the top of the newspaper, we've got remove fuel subsidy, IMF tells Nigeria. The story is on page 25. Underneath that, we have a Papa gridlock in the top left-hand corner. Naval officers, policemen raking millions as Nigerians groan. The stories are detailed in pages 38 and 39. Next to that story, UTME, professor arrested for aiding daughter to cheat. The story is on page 9. Ibadan Oba's appeal court dismisses Ladoja's motion to quash Gazette. That story is on page 40. Okay, now just at the bottom of the Punch newspaper, we've got a lot of pictures there, and the headline on that is Jubilation as Military Oust Sudanese President. The story is available on page 44. A number of stories at the bottom there as well. Let me just see if I can take one. Just in the bottom right-hand corner, WikiLeaks co-founder Julian Assange arrested in London, page 44. Okay, Gbolahun, let's quickly touch on this Jubilation as Military Oust Sudanese President. What's your take on that?
It's another dictator by the dust, and I think it's good for Africa. But it's not yet Uhuru, even in Sudan. The military that has taken over is not a good thing.
It's not democratic, so to speak.
Which is why I'm delighted that the protesters are sustaining the protest and asking that the transition to civilian government be midwifed by civilian and not by the military. What happens is that the military stays there, they have proposed a 2-year transition period, and within that 2 years, they just start enjoying the power. From that point onward, anything can happen.
Absolutely.
So it's not yet Uhuru. I hope that the military will eventually agree to bring in a civilian to midwife the transition program.
But an early victory starts to, you know...
Yeah, I mean, considering how it started, and within a few days, everything was over for Omar.
Okay, before we move on from the Punch, is there any other story you want to touch on before we move on?
There is the naval officer policeman. This is talking about those trucks on the bridge, Eco Bridge and the rest of them. I do pass Eco Bridge from time to time. And any time I pass on that Eco Bridge coming onto the island, I bother to look at the trucks. I found out that most of the trucks have 2 prominent names on them, 2 companies on them. I won't mention the names. Okay. But anybody who passes from Malacca through Eco Bridge, just be looking at the trucks. You will see the names of the companies on them. So for me, it comes across as if it's not a real problem, it's a conspiracy. Because if the trucks have names on them, why do we keep shouting on the pages of newspapers that they are parked there? We know the owners, that's what it means. So let's get them off the bridges. As simple as that. It's a conspiracy against the people. It's not a real problem.
Okay, all right, let's move on to our next paper now. I wish I had time, to touch on some of the things that you said earlier, because you even seem very passionate and, about your view on that. But let's move on to New Telegraph. Okay, so what's the headline on New Telegraph? We've got herdsmen, militia kill 25, burn 100 houses in Benue. A couple of riders underneath that. Buhari orders ruthless action on bandits and kidnappers. The reps tasked president to address Nigerians within 48 hours. IGP questions capacity of police commissioners. Those stories are available on pages 4, 8, and 12. At the top of the New Telegraph, we've got IMF, Nigeria, and others spent $5.2 trillion on fuel subsidy in 4 years, and World Bank says 9 in 10 extremely poor people will be Africans in 2030. At the bottom of the New Telegraph, there's a story there, another headline, FG to Atiku, resort to self-help or face consequences. And underneath that, Buhari, APC plotting to frame arrest Atiku, PDP. Most of the stories are just recurring from all the others.
They're recurring, but we can still touch on one or two of them.
Okay, so
on the fuel subsidy part of things, I think it's important for Nigerians to know that, because we have this image of we have so much oil. Nigeria does not appear on the name of the 10 top producers of oil in the world. We don't appear. A country like America produces at some point up to 15 million barrels of oil per day. Nigeria is still struggling with 2 million barrels per day. That country does not subsidize. The country that produces 15 million barrels does not subsidize fuel. Saudi Arabia, which is next, the cost of PMS in Saudi Arabia is higher than Nigeria. I was in Ghana in last year. Fuel sells in Ghana for an equivalent of about 350 naira per liter.
Okay.
So when Nigerians says, oh, Ghana, they say Ghana is going to grow at 8%. But do you know how much they sell fuel? A lot of, the subsidy is not the problem, really. But this subsidy is not going to the right places. People are just using it as an opportunity for graft. And that is why we need to remove fuel subsidy in Nigeria. The cheapest country for fuel is Venezuela. Do we want to be like Venezuela? It's a big question we need to ask. The next one, where we have the cheap oil, is Sudan. Look at those, and there's nothing to be, it should get us thinking that there's something wrong about subsidizing PMS.
Okay, all right, so moving on now to the next newspaper, Daily Sun. We've got their major headline is IMF recommends total fuel subsidy removal for Nigeria. Says Africa spent $5.2 trillion on that in 4 years. The story is available on page 37. At the top right-hand corner of the Daily Sun, we've got Imo lawmakers plot to impeach Speaker. The story is available on page 9. And at the bottom of the Daily Sun, we've got in the bottom left-hand corner, FG Atiku fight over fresh Abuja posters. The story is on page 8. And next to that story, we've got also on the bottom of the Daily Sun, as Supreme Court dismisses APC suits, let's work together, Wike tells Amechi and others. The story is on page 10. And the last story on the bottom of the Daily Sun, on the top right, in the bottom right-hand corner, defection. Court suspends judgment on suit seeking to sack Saraki, 55 lawmakers. The story is on page 4. Actually, that's the last story, but let's touch on that quickly. What's your initial reaction? On
the Supreme Court?
Yes.
Yes, I think Supreme Court has helped to put a final close out on the APC issue in, okay, you're talking of the Saraki one, huh?
Yes, Saraki, 55 lawmakers. The court suspends judgment on suit seeking to...
We need to get to the bottom of this. There must be a court pronouncement on it. And that is because it has happened more than a few times now, in which people cross from one party to the other, and we don't know how to deal with it. So the court needs to make a pronouncement so that we know if you cross, this is how it plays out. If you know, and be able to resolve it. But as at today, there is no clear position of the law on if you change your party, whether you still retain your position, because you were voted in under that party ab initio.
Okay, all right. And any other one you want to touch on?
Imo lawmakers plot to impeach Speaker. Swearing in is next month. So I don't really understand why you want to kick out the Speaker a few days to the end of that assembly. Unless there's something really, really grievous going on in that place. Otherwise, you just wait it out and get the guy out.
Okay, Gbolahun, thank you very much for all of your views. You've
much.
gone in depth as usual, you know, so I'm not disappointed. Thank you so much. It's good
Thanks
to have you
me
on the show. You've been listening to Gbolahun Olojede, Public Affairs Analyst. Right about now, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be discussing sports with our in-house analyst, Udoka Njoko. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. You're still watching today's edition of Off the Press, and we're about to talk sports. Earlier on, I mentioned that we have our in-house analyst Udoka, but unfortunately that's not the case. We still have our public affairs analyst Gbolahun Olojede still here in the studio. He'll be discussing sports with us right about now. So Gbolahun, good to have you once again. This is very interesting considering we're moving from current affairs and politics onto sports. But let's go on the major headlines, and then we can come back and discuss one of them in detail. So we're discussing complete sports. The major headline there is Eagles boast, bring on Ghana, CIV South Africa. Rosemen ready for any foes at Continental Football Fiesta in June. So that's the major headline there on complete sports. Let's look at the top of complete sports. We have in the left-hand side, we have Gunners bounce back. Ramsey on target in impressive Europa League win. Arsenal 2-0, Napoli. Arsenal 2, Napoli 0. Okay, and just next to that, we've got Alonso puts Blues in control. Heads Chelsea to victory on cold night in Prague. Okay, and next to that, we've got Igalo eyes goal, 0.5 in China. Nigeria forward eager to maintain sparkling form. Okay, so that story is on the top right-hand corner of complete sports. Let's take a look at the back before we come back to the front page. We've got Madrid slap 500 million euros price tag on Varane. That's player power there. Chelsea powerless to prevent Hazard exit. And just at the bottom of the back page, Madrid lower Bale asking price to 60 million pounds. Okay, all right, so let's go back to the front page. This is an interesting story. Igalo eyes the goal. You know, what's your...
It's goal number 5.
Goal number 5.
China.
Oh, okay, okay. I was like wondering. All right, so goal number 5 in China. Okay.
Igalo is one of those Nigerian players that we have been proud of over the years. But unfortunately, he has not been coming forth as much as we had expected. But this is just talking about his performance in his team side now. That he's already eyeing goal number 5 in China, which is something commendable for Igalo. I also would have liked to talk about the winnings by some of these English teams in the Europa League. You have Arsenal won its match. Chelsea also has won its match. And over the weekend, we have a lot of Premier League matches that are coming up. So I think most of the guys in Lagos are going to be glued to the TV over the weekend to watch a number of interesting matches. You have Liverpool, you have Man City. Practically everybody is coming on the pitch.
All right, thank you very much, Gbolahun. That's where we're going to leave it at this very moment because we're absolutely out of time. But we're back next week, Monday, for a fresh edition of Off the Press. Until then, I remain Tokunbo Taiwo, while saying thank you to Gbolahun Olojede for being wonderful as usual. Thank you very much once again.
Thanks for having me.
All right, until next time, until the next episode of Off the Press, have a great weekend.